It is a story about a journalist at the turning point of the Iran-Contra affair, Elena McMahon, a fearless investigative journalist who is covering the 1984 U.S. presidential campaign and puts herself in danger when she abandons her assigned task in order to fulfill the last wish of her father, a mysterious man whose past activities she barely knows. The movie started with both men and women walking on a path in the forest with guns and axes, two of which were journalists who have come to take footage from the war and finally managed to flee the scene. However, we see in the year 1984 in Washington, D.C. Elena McMahon asking the president questions and he could not quite answer them. We see Elena on the phone with Kat, who was asking about the funeral she went for, but she said it was not really a funeral and she said she was a little bit sad, but the thought of Kat helped keep her thankful because she looked so much like her grandmother, her eyes, her smile, and that keep her happy. Elena has always wanted to work on the Central American Bureau but was later told in the office the next day that the case would not be reopened. It then turned out that she has been trying to convince them for the past 2 years since they left San Salvador, but Stewart instead on sending her to the campaign trial instead, and he is not only freezing her case but that of everyone. She was about to quit when Alma told her that the campaign trials would give her more edge to go into places and even fly in and out. It is a way to even get closer to the center. When we see that she got a call from Dick, her father, to please come see him, who we later discovered he left her mom and her 20 years ago as soon as she left high school, and she managed all by herself to stay at UNLV for as long as she could afford, and he did not fill her in on his profession all the whole time, and she has managed all by herself. She gave birth and survived breast cancer as well, and Kathy, her daughter, is in a boarding school in the north. However, Dick is not aware that Kathy, Elena's mother, was dead, but he kept calling her line only for Elena to break the news to him. We see that Elena is in Kansas City for the presidential campaign and went for a fundraiser where Mrs. Helena helped her have a meeting with George, but he was not responsive. The same day, Elena is already in Houston, Texas, only to find a parcel under her bed in her hotel room but could not find who it was from. Back in Los Angeles, we see that Stewart is agitated at the fact that the New York Times, Chicago Tribune, Philadelphia Inquirer had all written about the California poll and he is just hearing about it, so he tells Elena to do her job as a reporter. He wants polls, bar charts, pie charts, lines and numbers, and he shouldn't be reading numbers in Orange County from the Michigan Gazette, and he wants his polls. Let him do his job as an editor, and she does her job as a reporter. Elena got her call from Miami that her father is not well. He did not remarry after her mom and has no other children, so she has to travel down to Miami, and she placed a call through to Alma that she would be off from work indefinitely. Alma was surprised at the fact that she walked out of the presidential campaign as well. Her father had a breakdown in the hospital and rang the alarm, and he kept on saying someone was waiting for him, but he is not in the right state of mind, so he tells Elena to help him do it, and she says she would help handle it. Later we discovered that her dad was okay and he would be discharged and has a big plans, but even with the plans he still has debt of $500K to pay. Elena tells Alma that he is into some shit, and she meets one of his friends the next day. She met with his friend and he told her all she needed to know and who to meet, but she needs to contact him if she need anything. She got there and it did not go as planned, so her father called the next day and begged her to go again to make the collection for him, but she didn't still get it. She went and this time discovered it was guns that were in the package and the payment was in cocaine and not cash. She still has to travel down for payment. She got there and decided to take a few pictures for reports. The man who drove her to pick up the cash told her there is nothing for her and nobody cares about her, and she threatened to shoot him if Hen doesn't come out of the car. Immediately he came down. She drove off and finally got to San Jose in Costa Rica, where she got a change of clothes. She placed a call through to Alma and she told her that she could not find anything on the name Max Epperson. It was like he did not exist, and it might be possible that her dad was wrong, but she confirmed he was not lying, as Jones, who helped her with the shipment, knew his name, so he is a real person and the money from the shipment is going for financing something else. She receives a call from Barry in her hotel room where she was, and she was surprised. He then tells her that the paper works for the money is going on underground and it is not ice cream, but she finds it hard to believe as they are not because they are not the ones in charge, and she wants a plane ticket out of where she is and what they owe her father. He tells her to stay in the room where she is and someone will reach out to her. We see that Elena is at the airport but has a problem as she has a false stamp on her passport and she intentionally left her bag which contains cocaine in his cab, but just as she wanted to check her passport he came running towards her saying she forgot her bag, but she kept denying that it wasn't her when she insisted they check the tag which was not carrying her name as she was Elise Meyer and the bag was for Mr. McMahon, and they let her through and arrested the cabman. On the other hand, Mr. McMahon had a setback and was rushed to the hospital when a woman came and said she was his stepdaughter, but her name was not on his listing. Elena arrived at St. John Antigua and the cab driver asked her where she would be staying, and the replied Ramada. We see she is on a call with her daughter Kathy, who is complaining about where she is and wants more. Elena was sitting by the water when she took to her feet and ran toward the bother, but is not allowed in because she doesn't have a passport as there was no appointment that day. She did not have a choice than to step back. She sat at a bar when we see a man, Mr. Morrison, came to her stating all her crimes and she asked if he would go on records with any of them and he said he already has. They then walked together when she told him that her father was Dick McMahon and she helped him with his mission. She took his place on a ghost plane out of Fort Lauderdale on June 29, 1:20 in the morning. A big-bellied Lockheed with enough guns, bullets, mines, and C4 to take Managua. She hustled without payday, no protection, and without plans, just a game one let her in on in secret war, and now she is with a passport with a trick built into it and no ticket back home, and it was the money she came for, and if she walks away from this it would mean she walking away from everything and all she wants to know. But later asked why Mr. Morrison was there and he tells her he thought she was the one sent to kill him. We later see both of them in the bed that night. The next morning she sat at the pool but could smell something fishy but couldn't quite get what it was when two men stood in front of her and suddenly they started shooting and managed to escape to the next village and still could not find a way back home. Even her daughter Kathy constantly sat beside the telephone to receive a call from her but she did not get any, and we later see Elena then tells Alma to call Kat father and he should go in person to pick her until she is back, and Alma told her her father was dead and she did not find her way back home. Now said some real things Jane happened lately and they were moving fast and she was young, like they used to say history is footnote, and she disappeared into the oceans.